Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone that's joining us for today's virtual discussion, our holiday season postmortem. My name is Brittany Hines. I'm the marketing manager here at TRG Arts, and I will be serving as your MC for the session. Before I introduce our hosts, I want to do a little housekeeping and go over a few guide rules for today. So today's session is, we're going to want everyone to keep themselves mute to ensure that everyone can hear each other. And we want you to use the chat feature if you want to ask a question. Just select chat from the option bar, type your question in the text box and hit send, and then we will answer your questions throughout the session. We will also be asking people to speak. Can you forward us forward? So your presentation is key. This is a discussion. We want to hear from you. So if you want to speak, please use the chat function or raise your hand and we will call on you. We will not get to everyone, but we want to make this as lively as possible. This discussion is recorded, and the video will be posted to our website in the next couple of days, and you will receive an email with all of that information. But if any of your questions are not answered, please email us at letstalk@trgarts.com. And also you can join us on Twitter for this discussion by using #HolidayResults. Now, we at TRG Arts, we are a very curious organization, and we are a data-driven arts firm. We are very curious about our data. Data comes first when we consult, and it illuminates the path to our results. We continually learn from our clients and with each other. Learning is number one in our organization, and we always teach what we learn from our clients and our peers, and this is an example of that. We will be sharing what we've learned directly from our clients this past holiday season. This is just a look at, we are an international firm, and we have worked with organizations all across the United States, Canada, and now in the UK, and even an organization in Australia. And at TRG, we are true believers of the power of arts and culture to transform individuals and communities. And we do our work to make the arts field stronger. So before we get started, I just want to orient us to what we mean by the holiday season. In the United States, we talk about the holiday season as being the time between Thanksgiving and New Year's, and the holiday shows that are produced are usually the Nutcracker or A Christmas Carol. In the UK, they have a different tradition of the pantomime. It's a British tradition of a theatrical production that is geared towards families and kids, that involves topical jokes, music, slapstick comedy, and is based on fairy tales and nursery stories. This happens again around that Christmas season. Just to orient you guys, because I know that not everyone knows what a pantomime is. I know I didn't know what a pantomime is until I started working at TRG Arts. So just so we can understand across the globe. And now I'm going to introduce Keri Mesropov, our Vice President of Client Services. She leads our team of consultants and analysts that work with our clients on data, pricing, and loyalty. So Keri.
Brittany.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the party.
I can't wait. Hi, everybody, and Brittany, thank you for that great introduction. I have some other introductions to make, but before I do, for all of you on the phone today, I want to just underscore a couple of things that Brittany has said. This is a dialogue, so perhaps slightly different than other webinars that you have been on. We are going to ask questions of you, and I promise if everyone is shy and crickets are chirping, we'll just pick on someone, and you probably don't want that, Colleen Bird from Joffrey Ballet. I also want to underscore what we do at TRG is teach. but we also learn a great deal. And that's part of the reason for the dialogue today, because you have things to share with us about your holiday results. And that helps us learn, and in turn, we turn around and spit that back at the field. And so this is a mutual learning opportunity for us. We have some data points about what our clients experienced, but you will also be data points in this conversation. So I just want to underscore that. Okay, I want to introduce you to a really awesome clan of people here at TRG. I would say, in the absence of our senior consultants, I'm smiling here, but this group of people is really the hub of all of our analysis at TRG and all of the work that happens sometimes behind the scenes. Our consulting analysts are here with me today and are really going to be the experts that we're going to turn to ask questions of. I want to introduce them one by one, and you're going to say hi as I do. Caitlin Green.
Hi, everybody.
Kathy Backwell Marsh is here.
Hi, everyone.
Rebecca McNamee.
Hello.
Jillian Clough.
Hi there.
And last, but certainly not least, in the UK, where it is in the afternoon, Stephen Skripik. Say hi, if you would.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, so I want to start with this reality. This is the truth. The holiday season, what happens in nonprofit performing arts organizations in Broadway 2 is this truth, that sometimes, most times, over 60% of annual ticket revenue comes from this very short period of time that happens at the end of the year. Just, let that absorb for a second. It's a very important time. And all of you certainly feel that in your own shops. I am certain of it. A year's success can be made or broken in a very short number of weeks with your holiday offering. And so the first question that we have, that I think, Brittany, is a poll question. Am I right on that?
Yes, it
is. Did your holiday offering meet, exceed, or underperform this past year? You tell me when, Brittany.
All right, so we have about 57% of people have come in. So we're going to give it about 5 more seconds. If I hit in polling, great. So now I'm going to be sharing the results. So we can see that we have 63% said that they underperformed, 50% said they exceeded, and 38% met their goals.
Okay, all right. I want to show you what we saw, what we see, what we are seeing in the field. Here's what we're seeing. This is a big aggregate look at data. And the pre-TRG, we're talking about our group of clients here. That's why you see pre-TRG. And you see what's happening with admissions and revenue. Again, big aggregated number. And it is a growing enterprise, particularly with revenue, right? That's the line. That's the red line. What we see here is that admissions in the last 2 years have been flat while our revenues have grown. And we would all say probably, yay, revenue grew. That's what we live and die on, TRG, revenue grew. And we would say, hold that thought, hold that thought. This phenomenon that I'm calling a phenomenon, the gap between the admissions, look at 17, 18, the blue bar and the distance between that blue bar and the red line. And we would say, that delta is something to be mindful of. It's something to be thinking about. And I want to ask someone in the audience, this is where I hope someone will raise their hand. Why do we care about this delta? Why does this delta between revenue and admissions matter? And Brittany, I'll look to you to help us. Pick on somebody if they don't raise their hand.
All right, I am going to pick on Jennifer Weissman.
Jennifer Weissman at the Boston Ballet. I know you.
Jennifer, I'm unmuting you. Hello?
Is there somebody else?
I can pick someone else. Samantha Turner, I'm picking on you. Samantha?
Either technology is not working, or people are
Are
hiding
being
under
shy.
their desks. It's okay. I'm going to ask one of our panelists here with me today, Rebecca. Why does this matter?
Yeah. So to your point, Keri, yay, revenue went up. That's great. And yet ultimately that admissions is a really important marker to look at. It's ultimately about how many people we're getting in the seats, right? To push further into our next performance, further up our, probably many of you here know our loyalty ladder, our good old stair-step man. And so we really do care about the number of people that we have to talk to for our single ticket campaigns and in our subscription campaigns. So yes, revenue is great. It means we maybe increased prices or sold more higher priced inventory, but always coming back to that, how many people do we have to talk to is really what fuels our campaigns going forward.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you know, in an extreme case, we had an opera company some number of years ago, big operas, and we got to subscription, and things just weren't moving, and they were executing beautifully on their campaign plan, had all the right things in place, and they came to us and said, TRG, why is this not happening? Why is subscription not moving? And a dig into this revealed that though they had been growing revenue year over year quite substantially, admissions were flat. And further, a data point that we don't have in here today that all of you should look at from your most recent holiday Christmas Panto offering is the number of households that attended. So you've got revenue, number of tickets, and then the number of households. And what we saw with this opera company was decline in households. That's a root cause. It will prevent you from growth, especially for your big blockbuster like Christmas, Panto, holiday offering, where you rely on that to bring in so many new people. And so it matters. It matters. If you're not projecting on both revenue and admissions, you must be, for this very reason. Thanks, Rebecca. Let's look a little deeper into this phenomenon. Distance between revenue and admissions. So this is by genre. We've broken it out by genre here. And you can see the what line goes with what genre. You can see for theater, where we have Christmas Carol and other things, a big uptick in admissions. You see that there's been some slight pulse with Panto and with family offerings, family program offerings. Look at ballet though. Look what happened to ballet in 17-18. We saw a big dip in admissions. A big dip in admissions. Some of that can be attributed to calendar. This is sort of a side note, but we know for long runs like the Nutcracker or a Christmas Carol, where performances are on the calendar can make a huge difference. We see this all the time in our council. This past year, many performances had to take place after Christmas. And in some cases, we just didn't quite plan well enough to support those performances with paid media, with direct response, in the way that we needed to. And so that is but one cause. This is revenue. Same orientation, but this is revenue. Look what happened with ballet. There's sort of a saving that happened there, right? We made up for what we didn't get on volume and probably some pretty terrific pricing techniques, demand-based pricing, all the things that have been best practice for a long time. And the rest of the trends are similar. Panto, recall that there was a slight uptick in admissions. Here we see revenue to be more flat, maybe perhaps not as aggressive as perhaps we are in the States now around dynamic pricing. So admissions were growing slightly in the previous slide for Panto. Here revenue is pretty flat.
We have a comment from Zach Olson. With sold out houses, we're seeing fewer households bringing more people to our holiday offerings, leaving number of admissions flat with increase in revenue and a decrease in houses.
Zach, where are you from? We'll find out. Okay, I have a question, and maybe Zach has started.
Bach Festival.
Thanks, Zach. This goes right to what Zach is answering. Here's a question. I think it's a poll, Brittany.
Yes, it is.
Did any of you see this phenomenon where admissions were declining or flat, but revenues grew for your holiday offering? Did any of you see the same thing? I feel like there should be poll taking music in this.
All right, we're seeing these numbers coming in. Okay.
So many of you experienced the same thing. I think it wasn't 100%, but it was something, yeah. Yes. Interesting. That's a learning for all of you on the phone and for us here at TRG. This is a learning. And I'm going to, again, look to my colleague, Rebecca, to talk about, Rebecca, if you could, why do we see this? Why does this happen? And more importantly, what's the counsel that we would provide to our group here on what can we do to mind this, to see a different trend as we prepare already for next year's holiday offerings?
Yeah, so, ultimately this is that theme we were talking about earlier, which is great job. You had a higher per capita revenue on the people you did get. But really what happened here is we didn't get as many people in the door as we planned on getting in. And there's a lot of things that can feed into this. And in fact, we've gotten to drill into this with a lot of our clients, and it's so fun to pick at all those angles. But ultimately, you look at things like the campaign timing. Did we, again, have to move performances where they start and ended? Did we start our campaign later than maybe we typically did? Were there changes to the kinds of media we put out, the kinds of offers, the kind of prospecting that we did that caused us to not have the same volume as we would typically have? And so ultimately, it's really about advanced planning and tracking as you go and giving yourself time to catch it early so you have time to adjust. Anybody who works with us knows we look at our trackers on a weekly basis for your sales, and that can help us see this trend early on and start asking those questions like, did this offer get out when we thought it would? Did it work the same way that we thought it would work? Another thing that we do in many different kinds of campaigns, but is absolutely applicable in something like holiday, is asking the question of where did all of our patrons come from in previous years, and how are we tracking against that this year? So for example, if in previous years we had our subscribers, adding on tickets and selling 5,000 tickets from our subscriber add-ons, and this year we've only got 2,000 coming from that segment, there's a gold mine that we can tap into. And if we do this early enough, we've got time to act on it. So it's kind of imagining the pie of all your attendees in the past to see where you've got that juice to squeeze out. this is a bit of work, right? This is, you got to figure out how to find this in your data. And yet to that opening data point Keri had, which is that this is 60% potentially of your revenue for the year. This is worth that work to look and see who's responding, where do we have more to go, so that you can get those extra units and of course that extra revenue.
So thank you, Rebecca. What we're hearing is many of you, like 80% of you, 70, 80% of you saw the same thing we did with our own client base. Have a postmortem, a really thorough postmortem to understand the first thing Rebecca talked about, which is, did I launch my campaign as many weeks out last year as I did this year? Did I deploy offers that drove volume? Did I do that this year or not this year? And I did it last year. That can have a big impact. Did I let the paid media gas pedal up in places that I had it pushed down last year? And this last point, which is looking at segmentation, looking at who came this year and how those same folks responded last year. Are there Delta subscriber was your example, lapsed holiday buyers? Did they return at the same rate as they did last year? There's data, that's the point, that can help you understand what you need to fix. Thanks, Rebecca. Okay, let's look at what happened by genre with actual revenue achieved against the budgeted or projected revenue. Again, there are differences, but can I just say, we did a pretty darn good job of getting really close, in some cases, overachieve on those goals. Even those that didn't make it, family programming and ballet, gee whiz, you came really close, and in fact, hit within a best practice of 5% of your goal. And I also have to say, theater clients, you overachieved by, from our taste, a little bit of a side, a little too much. So overachieving by 12% or anything that's much higher than 5%, we would say, go back to your projection, you're not being assertive enough. That's an aside, but overachievement, significant overachievement can be as problematic as underachieving, believe it or not. That's another day, that's another webinar. Okay, so just looking relative across this, we see a little bit of trouble with family and ballet. And with this in mind, I have another question for all of you in the audience today. And that is, who had family programming? One of these two buckets I'm interested in, Nutcracker for ballet companies or family programming that underperformed, first of all. And if you could comment in the box, I'm not sure if we have our audio release available for you to actually talk. But if you could type in the chat, if it did underperform, what do you chalk that up to? What are the top two reasons why you believe your Nutcracker or your family program underachieved? And this is where we'll sing,
we're singing,
music.
we're dancing. Oh.
Shouldn't it be the Nutcracker that we're listening to?
Hi, you're marked as Brittany Hines, but I'm Brittany Hines, but you raised your hand. Okay. Oh, she does not have a microphone.
Darn, what about typing it?
Yeah, if you can type it, we will love it.
Okay, in the name of dead air being deadly in these settings, I'm going to look to my colleague Jillian. Jillian, I wonder if you can comment on some of the leading causes that we see here at TRG when budgets for holiday programs are not made?
Sure. So, one of the biggest reasons we see for why we might not meet the budget, Rebecca already touched on, is when we didn't execute or implement the plan that we initially had. So, we might have the best intentions starting out, but for whatever reason, we're unable to follow through on that plan. So maybe we don't start early enough, or we change course in the middle some way and, go down a different path. And so the key really, to Rebecca's point, is advanced planning, starting as early as possible and then actually executing and following through on that plan. The important thing is not to take your eye off the ball. And, when as soon as you go on sale, you start watching that revenue and see how it's pacing compared to previous years and compared to your expectations. And you keep pushing and you keep your foot on that gas pedal until you are sold out. So really starting early and then sticking with your plan and following through. Another reason we might not meet the budget is about investment. Are we spending enough money, and are we spending in the right ways to really draw people to these shows? So there's the question of cost of sale and how much you're really investing and the return you're seeing on that investment. And Keri, is there something you want to build on?
Well, I first want to, there are some comments coming in, and I see the word investment, Jillian. Here, Colleen, who is with the Joffrey Ballet in Chicago, second year of a brand new Nutcracker. We always tend to overproject in the second year of a new production. And you comment on that. You did more performances than you'd ever done, Colleen, of the Nutcracker, and projected the houses to fill at a similar rate. And the second point is we spent less on marketing budget. We're all cringing in the room. And I don't think I set this up. Oh yes, I did. I did set it up. And here's, let's talk about that. Let's talk about investment. Cost of sale. That is how much we're spending to make $1 or £1 of earned income. And for the recent holiday season, here are those cost of sale ratios by genre. They are low, ladies and gentlemen. A single ticket best practice cost of sale range is 20 to 25%. Now, we know that holiday always tends to be lower. Panto is exceptionally low. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the first thing I want you to hear is that holiday is always low. You'll see, it's a cash cow. We can't afford, ? To spend less. And I am certain that not every single performance of your holiday or Christmas offering sells out completely. You might have 30% of them sold out completely. In the best case scenario, even 75, 80% of those performances sold out. That's not sold out. So guess what? You throw more money at it to make it turn for you. And here's why that is particularly important for holiday programming. Look at the ROI by genre. These numbers are ridiculous, enormous. Here you see the return that Panto experiences for our friends in the UK. It's enormous. For every genre, holidays, it's a cash cow. And remember, beginning slide, it represents over 60% of all the ticket revenue that we garner annually. And this thing has to go well, right? Because it helps sustain our organizations. It helps fund really cool things that we want to do. Just a reminder of how we calculate cost of sale. It's reversed, actually. It's total expenses divided by the total sales. I apologize. So reverse those. And that gives you a cost of sale. How many pennies on a dollar are we having to spend to return? So let's look at this ratio by country and by genre. Oops, I'm sorry. Here is a 2-year look. And we see that in all cases, except in the UK, for Panto, our cost of sale ratio has decreased. Is that good or is that bad? Let's look at another year. Let's pull in 3 years of data. Our cost of sale is declining. And in the UK, we might have something to learn where there was just a teeny tick up. And I'm going to turn to my colleague, Caitlin, here to describe this slide to talk a little bit more about what we're seeing with cost of sale.
Sure. So here we're looking at a breakout of UK pantos. This is from one client, some ballets here in the US, and then some of our theater clients in Canada. Now, just to orient you to what you're seeing, those longer bars represent revenue. So the top teal long bar in each of those is the first year of revenue, and then the blue bar is the second year. And then you'll see much shorter bars next to each one of those that represent expenses for each of those years. So what we're seeing here in the UK, I'm not there, I'd like to be there, but I'm here. What we're seeing in the UK is that this client spent a little bit less in this year's panto than they did last year. And we've seen that affect the revenues there as well. When you go into the US, looking at our Nutcracker clients, they've also seen a decrease in those expenses from $174,000 to $94,000. And again, we're seeing a decrease in revenue there. Now in Canada, we have a bit of an anomaly where we see that they have also decreased their marketing spend, but their revenue hasn't changed that much. So what we would say here at TRG and as consultants is that that's not the one to bank on. This is an anomaly. This worked for a year, but if they were to continue to decrease that investment, we would eventually see that revenue would do the same thing. That would decrease as well.
Right. Thanks, Caitlin.
Sure.
Okay, for our friends in the UK, I have a question for you. So we see, I'll characterize it verbally. We see with Panto and in our own digging that isn't represented here that we, in this last season of holiday Christmas, Panto spent about the same that we did the year prior, but we saw higher revenue. And my question for our friends in the UK is, did you have that same experience? Did you spend about the same in your marketing efforts, but see a lot more revenue, a little more revenue? If you could just type in the text box, we'll sing while you all do that. And comment about, if so, what do you attribute that to?
I'm looking to y'all to sing.
I heard someone promised the song. I think that was Keri.
Hum the Nutcracker.
I feel like it should be Stephen that sings because he's in the UK. He knows what music would go.
Yes.
We'll give it about 15 more seconds. As you do that, what I would say is we have, a smaller number. We're very curious about the answer to this because we don't know. We have, I think it's 3 clients that have seen the same thing, but are curious to know if this is more of a trend in the UK. Okay, I'm going to move us on. Stephen, our wonderful colleague in the UK, I wonder if you, Stephen, could comment for not only friends in the UK, but elsewhere in the world who are thinking already, and if you aren't, you should be, planning for next year's Nutcracker or Christmas Carol or Panto or Holiday Pops. What are the 2 pieces of counsel, Stephen, that you would provide to them if they can't spend any more money?
Sure. If they can't spend any more money, that's a situation that we often hear. And I think the first thing that we would recommend is to take a closer look at the allocation of your marketing resources. We've already touched on this a little bit already today, but we want to check that you're not overweighted to acquisition campaigns, and that we've got more frequent or higher volume direct marketing campaigns, which you can track the return on. And Keri raised this point about bringing new people. New people are very important. We want to see that happening, but we still see significant churn in Christmas and holiday programs year on year. And you will find higher returns and a lower cost of sale when you're encouraging past bookers to re-engage. New people cost a lot to acquire, and we want to keep that happening, yes, but we want to encourage those most likely to attend from your database first. So just check yourself. Are you investing of what you've got? Are you investing enough on inviting people back? And on those lower cost of sale, those cheaper campaigns where we can measure the result of those to get people back. The second thing that I would recommend is to ensure that you give yourself flexibility with your pricing. I know that some of you dabble with dynamic pricing. If you don't already, we would recommend that you do. And advertising a starting price or stating that prices are subject to change will enable you to react to demand, to ensure that you maximize revenue on those highest demand performances, specifically over the Christmas period, but can also be used by your box office teams to drive bookings to quieter shows. If you're already experimenting with dynamic pricing, I know some of those comments have talked about selling out some performances. Be bolder with your price changes this year. You're leaving money on the table if you're sold out 1 or 2 months in advance on some key performances. And look at how you restrict your concessions and discounts around there as well.
Great, thanks, Stephen. We do have a comment from Emma in the UK who says, we spent similar amount, but it was an exceptional year from a revenue standpoint. And Emma, you don't do Panto, right? Lots of UK entities do a family Christmas production like you do, Emma, but it sounds like, yes, we saw something similar, but there's an asterisk around it. It was an exceptional year, okay? All right, before I open the floor to questions, I want to summarize what we learned from this past holiday season. The first is that overall, in one big lump, holiday is a growing enterprise. It's going to be around. We might as well embrace it and learn from it. Admissions matter as much as revenue. And I would take that further to say households, my opera example from earlier. You will be caught with your pants down if we're only watching revenue. Admissions matter. So if you're not already projecting on them, you're not already monitoring them, get busy doing that. Investment. I hear this all the time from clients. I saw in the chat box, there were several of you that commented, nope, my investment didn't grow. My expectation grew, but my investment didn't. And you must take a hard look at that. To Stephen's point, where could we steal from? Because that ROI is so big and enables so many things to happen in your organization. Calendar of performances, we talked a little bit about this, but if you are a theater company or a ballet company that has many, many performances of your holiday offering, where those are on the calendar relative to Thanksgiving and Christmas in particular matters. You can look at your historical data to understand that in specific ways. Look at over, the past 3 years, the calendar and how those performances fell and what the results for each performance was against this year. And I'll bet you'll find a gap. It matters, calendar matters. And advanced planning. We have clients now who, I'll pick on Nutcracker, closes end of December, and they have gotten busy in selling the next year's Nutcracker as early as February. Yes, you can, to select groups through email campaigns. And we all know that the earlier we start, the more successful sales will be. So advanced planning and not taking your eye off the ball. as Rebecca mentions. Okay, I want to open up, or Brittany, maybe we have questions to ask of our panel of experts. If not, I have some.
Please take time and write any questions that you have in the chat box. But we do have just some of our own questions if we want to do those.
I'm going to ask this of my colleague, Kathy, over there. You'll have to speak loudly from over there, Kathy. Okay, the question that someone from our audience asked is, what's the right next step for a holiday buyer? Should I just think of them as a holiday buyer and not worry about trying to get them to other things? Or what is the next step for these holiday buyers?
Well, you certainly don't want to put them in the box of never attending again until next year. Yes, always reach out to them and think about retaining them, thinking about retaining them in a way that mirrors the experience they just had. So reminding them, instead of sending out a postcard that to your people that just came to holiday, to your next performance, maybe send them out a postcard of an experience they just had, a key moment from the performance or the production that had an emotional experience. That will remind them of the wonderful time they had and inspire their purchase. Maybe give them a great offer to come back, invite them back. Don't just wait until next year. You want to see if they're going to react. If they don't react, then you can go back to them for something else. But never pass up the opportunity to invite someone back to your space soon after they've attended.
Right. This point around retention is huge, and you've heard TRG preach about that for years and years. Guess what? We're not getting a whole lot better at retaining our new single ticket buyers. And there's so darn many of them for our holiday offerings. To Kathy's point, we can't ignore them. And so the right next step is to get them back as immediately as we can in whatever way that makes sense, or whatever production makes sense. Don't give up on them. There are too many of them. That's what we're hearing, Kathy.
I have another question. Would TRG expect to see a similar unit revenue trend for non-holiday blockbusters?
Caitlin.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think yes, maybe. Yes, maybe is going to be a big part of this answer. What we see in the holiday show is that you're bringing in a tremendous number of new to file buyers. And if you have a huge blockbuster hit, you might be seeing that same trend there. So we would expect to see more new to file buyers coming in for a blockbuster, just like we are in holiday shows. But the way that you've structured your subscription program matters. Are all of your blockbusters included in that? Do you have capacity to reach as many new people with a non-holiday blockbuster as you do in your holiday blockbuster? So that can really vary from organization to organization, but I think the key thing to remember there is that a blockbuster does function in some of those ways as bringing new people into your organization for the first time. And then our job after that is to make sure they come back. How do we retain those new audiences once they've crossed the threshold into our space?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask this one, Brittany. There's a question about how many performances are the sweet spot. So I think what our audience member is asking is, do I have too many? Do I have too few? And the answer from TRG, of course, would be data would help us understand that. If we see a trend, looking over some number of years, think 3, that we are seeing a decline in the percentage of capacity sold. Comps don't go in there. Percentage of capacity sold by individual performance for your holiday offering, your Christmas offering, that might be cause to take a step back to say, do we have too many of them? If you've got, and we have a few clients, we were just talking about this yesterday, who there are performances, many of them, that are touching up against 80% capacity sold. That's another problem. It means you've got to consider adding performances. So I think I would look at historical data, individual performance, capacity sold, probably a couple of other data points, per capita revenue, to understand what's the trend What are we seeing to help me determine if I've got too many or not enough performances? There's another question that is, I'm going to put to Rebecca. And in spending marketing dollars, is it better to start earlier or to make sure that you're marketing all the way until the end of the final performance?
Yes.
Rebecca's going to give us the right answer.
Both of those things. So absolutely, spending earlier and making those investments, getting those sales in earlier, and using deadlines earlier on in the sales cycle to drive sales. A real thing that we have seen impact the ability to make your revenue goal is something as simple as the weather. That can be a real thing. And so getting somebody to commit to buying that ticket before that day happens doesn't let that be such a hit to your goals. So absolutely, getting sales earlier, putting those messages out there lets you get those earlier sales, lets you not get gray hairs sitting there hoping that 75% of your revenue comes in that last weekend. It also lets you reward loyalty to your patrons and talk to that person who's been subscribing to say, we've opened up our prime inventory for Nutcracker just for you. You can buy it now, but get it soon before it goes on sale to the public. So it's a great opportunity in both of those ways. And yet you've got to keep pushing it until you are 100% sold out of 100% of your performances. We've also seen it happen that sales are chugging along pretty well. We did great advanced sales. So we say, you know what, we're going to save some money and get rid of those TV ads, get rid of those radio ads. And gosh, we see the impact of that also. So it's a both and here. You can't just do one or the other. But both of them will have different messages, different segments, and will serve your campaign at those different times.
Right. There are a few questions coming in, and I'll take some of it, but Caitlin will be looking to you here too about competition. Is it common to see organizations operating in a competitive environment, and how do they do that? How do they do that? There are a few questions about that. So I'll make a couple of comments and ask you to fortify my answer here, Caitlin.
Sure.
We at TRG have a pretty simple saying about competition, and that is rising tide lifts all sails. A number of years ago, this will age me, but a number of years ago when the Rockettes were coming and touring to a city near you, we worked with a large ballet company who came to us and said, oh, we're going to crawl under a rock and hide. And we said, no, you are not. The gift that you have is that you know about it in advance, well in advance, February before that December. And we're going to help you make a case to spend even more money and start now. And do you know that was the first year of a very steep upward trend in their results, because they got out big time early, they spent more money, saw even higher returns. So competition, it exists everywhere, always, not just for your holiday offering. And we say, get in the game. When it is big and serious, like that was with the Rockettes, we argue it's the year to spend more money in places where your competition spends more money. Rockettes were spending heavy in TV. We spent more money in TV because that would help combat. So rising tide lifts all sails. We're not afraid of competition. It can have a very positive impact if we get ahead of it and play aggressively. Caitlin, is there anything else that you would offer about competition?
No, you answered the entire question,
yes.
Really, very well. The only thing I would say is that the more competition you have in town, the more potential audiences you're seeing. So the more there is for people to consume, the more consumers you will build, and you want to get your hat in the ring to be able to have those consumers become your patrons.
Yeah, competition is a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, Brittany, I am mindful of time, and so I think I want to turn this over to you. I thank you, all of you who have attended today. Brittany has a few things to say here, and thank you to our consulting analysts for joining us today, Stephen across the pond, and those of you here in Colorado. Thank you.
Great. Again, yes, thank you to everyone that is in attendance. Thank you to all of our lovely panelists and to Keri. I just want to let you guys know that for everything that you've learned today, that you do not have to do this alone. Can I get you just for one more? That you do not have to do this alone, that we can help you with your campaigns. We can help you build the best campaigns of your career. And if you're interested in learning more about how you can work with us, we're giving a special offer to everyone that's in attendance today. Now through Friday, March 30th, you can get 10% off any consulting engagement if you book before then. So all you have to do is email Let's Talk at TRG Arts for more details, and we will sit down and listen and learn about your unique situation and talk about exactly how we can help you in your location, in your country, and in your unique organization. And this does not just have to be for your work for the holiday season. We are ready to help you with subscription, single ticket campaign planning, loyalty, and demand management. So again, just send us an email at letstalk@trgarts.com, and you have until Friday, March 30th to take up this offer. But again, thank you for taking time out of your day to sit and listen to this discussion and for your participation. Thank you for all of your questions. Again, if you have any additional questions, you can also send those over to Let's Talk at TRG Arts, and we'll be happy to answer those questions as well. And this session was recorded. It will be on our website soon, and I will be sending you an email with that information, with that recording. But again, thank you for your time, and we will see you soon.